The term serial killer can strike fear in the heart of any community.
It was clear to us what we were seeing was a trail of death.
I don't believe I had that right, but I did it anyway. But I just couldn't stop myself.
He was cold, he was controlling, it was all about him.
We meet the police who discovered that one of the most prolific murderers in American history was a nurse.
Had he not been stopped when he was, his reign of killing would have continued.
And reveal what brought out the killer within.
How can a person do that to a person, especially a nurse? How can a nurse do that? To just kill at free will?
A former nurse at a hospital in New Jersey is accused of killing his patients tonight, lots of them.
In fact, if it's true what he says, he left a trail of death behind him. As he sees it, he only helped people who were suffering, but police call him nothing more than a mass murderer.
This nurse may have killed more people than anyone else in the history of New Jersey, in a career spanning many years, involving many hospitals.
Between 1988 and 2003, at least 40 people died at the hands of a killer who hid in plain sight for nearly 20 years.
Nurses are one of the people we associate with being a caretaker, helper, trying to put people in a better shape than they found them.
To the outside world, 43-year-old New Jersey native Nurse Charles Cullen was a quiet, unassuming man. Detective Tim Braun was responsible for interrogating Cullen when he was eventually caught.
Meek, very timid, very mild-mannered type of a man who was soft-spoken, very soft-spoken. Would you like us to call you by any other name other than Mr. Cullen?
Charlie is what I usually go with.
If there is an image of a killer, Cullen did not fit it.
This seemingly ordinary man held a dark secret.
Cullen had killed at least 40 people, but potentially up to 400. If Cullen actually had committed all 400 of those murders, he would be the most prolific serial killer of all time.
Cullen systematically killed patients across 9 different hospitals in New Jersey and Pennsylvania by administering fatal levels of medication to his victims.
The constant signature of Cullen's acts were the injection of medications, lethal medications, into a patient's IV.
What was this guy doing? What was the problem with this guy? Why did he do it?
Charles Cullen went from bedside carer to an angel of death.
The question that arises out of all of this, Charles, is the why.
Charles Cullen was born on the 22nd of February 1960 in West Orange, New Jersey.
Charles Cullen's childhood was marred with a variety of dysfunction within his household. He was the youngest of several children. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, he was the subject of not only physical abuse, but quite a bit of emotional abuse. Cullen experienced, as I would learn, severe depression throughout his life.
I never really liked being who I was, because I didn't think I was worthy of anything.
A timid child, he began exhibiting self-destructive behavior at an incredibly young age.
I've attempted suicide several times in my life. Probably a lot more times than I can actually recall. The earliest one probably going back to around 9 years old, I guess, when I had a chemistry set and I mixed stuff together and I drank it down. I got violently sick, threw up everything, and nobody even knew about that.
At the time, that was interpreted as a suicide attempt, probably because he was a miserable child, he was probably a complaining child, isolated, nobody could get through to him.
It's unlikely that at age 9, he really knew the consequences of any of his actions. Oftentimes, young people, they don't understand the final nature of death.
Throughout his adolescence, Cullen was bullied constantly by schoolmates. He became more and more insular and troubled. Then, age 17, he lost the one person who gave him comfort.
His mum was somebody who maybe understood him or was more forgiving of his strangeness than other people. So when she died, when he was still a teenager, that would have had an absolutely devastating effect.
I didn't cope with it very well. My mother was the only person at that time that sort of kept the cushion between what was happening in the house and me. And I know that sounds selfish, but with her gone, things just got worse. And besides the loss of my mother, I just felt very unprotected.
Following the death of his mother, Cullen's behaviour took a sinister turn. In 1978, Cullen took revenge on the classmates who had tormented him. While at a birthday party, he spiked their drinks with rat poison. Although no one died, it was a chilling foreshadowing of the crimes he would go on to commit.
This was a method that he'd learnt early on, which he subsequently employed when he went on his killing spree. It was his first attempt. It was a failed attempt, but he learnt from that.
In 1978, Cullen dropped out of school and joined the Navy. But his military career was short-lived. Just 6 years later, after numerous troubling incidents, he was discharged, and in 1984, 24-year-old Cullen began training to be a nurse.
It's not unusual for some people to go into professions such as medicine to have a greater sense of need for control and dominance, particularly because it takes a lot of that to be successful in a field like medicine. But clearly Cullen took this to a new level. He was extremely narcissistic.
I felt very compelled, very driven to end suffering as I saw it.
He's not interested in helping people. He has no empathy. He has no sympathy. He doesn't feel good about saving people's lives. He was creating opportunities for himself to get close to people who were in that medical environment, who were vulnerable, completely vulnerable to him.
In June 1987, Cullen got a nursing job in the burns unit of St. Barnabas Medical Center in Livingston, New Jersey. His first known victim was 72-year-old retired judge John Yengo Sr.
Is there any one patient in particular that stands out in your mind, either by the extent of their injuries, either how they may have received them, or age, or anything?
One of them was a judge, a retired judge, that I actually do remember. I don't remember how it occurred, but I remember that part of it. He was extensively burned.
Cullen's victims were extremely vulnerable just because of their physical condition. They're relying on others to take care of them and trusting that others will take care of them.
On the 6th of November 1988, Cullen injected Judge Yengo's IV bag with a lethal dose of lidocaine, a type of local anaesthetic.
He's the only one specifically that I remember me, but probably because of the title.
The first kill is very momentous. This is something that they often think about extensively. It's like a thorn in their side. They keep wanting to do, but at the same time, they're trying to repress.
The thing is, with serial killers, they have these rituals. So when they play out this ritual for the first time and they get that excitement, that's a very powerful reward system. And the reward system just keeps on and on and on. It's never going to stop.
It didn't stop. Cullen's 16-year-long killing spree had only just begun.
There was no regard for the victim. There was no remorse. There was no guilt.
In 1988, nurse Charles Cullen had been killing patients on the burns unit of a New Jersey hospital.
Those first 2 years in the burn unit, did any deaths occur as a result of your actions?
Yes, it was probably 4 or 5.
In the burn unit?
In the burn unit.
Okay.
I don't remember any specifics.
During this period, Cullen kept up the pretense of living a normal life.
This was something that I kept inside of me. Something that I kept on telling myself that I could stop if I had someone in my life.
Despite the outward projection of normalcy, behind closed doors, it was a different story. Cullen was drinking heavily and was abusive to his wife.
This is not a man who has that kind of emotional attachment with their partner. They can fake it sometimes, and they might need it. They might need a relationship, but who they are remains the same. But Charles Cullen was never going to treat a partner well, ever.
By 1992, Cullen had been working at St Barnabas Hospital for 4 years, and his actions were starting to get noticed. When a batch of contaminated IV bags were discovered, Cullen became the #1 suspect.
I had contaminated IV infusion bags with insulin. I don't remember the specific patients or whatever.
So it was your intention to cause death to these patients? Right? Contaminating these bags?
Yes, it was.
In January 1992, Cullen quietly left St Barnabas.
They chose to allow him to move on, leave their hospital without being reported to any state nursing boards or law enforcement.
Just a month later, Cullen began working at the coronary care unit at Warren Hospital in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Later, as he began killing again, Cullen's personal life started to unravel. He needed help.
He received mental health treatment at psychiatric hospitals for his depression and suicide attempts. And to me, I felt they were cries for help. Whatever help that may have been, it was his way of somehow reaching out.
It was 93. I had made like 3 or 4 attempts that I got hospitalized for. One of them was initially right at the breakup of the marriage.
During stays in a psychiatric hospital, Cullen became infatuated with another woman.
I thought that we were gonna be together. What happened eventually is that I told her that I loved her, and she didn't want any part of that.
Things soon took a sinister turn.
He consistently pursued her and was relentless, even stalking her and breaking into her home. He had to have the final say.
I went to the back. I broke the window. I entered her house. I went up to her bedroom to her son's bedroom, heard her breathing, saw her figure generally in bed.
Cullen was arrested and charged with criminal trespass. The incident led to another suicide attempt.
His suicide attempts became a maladaptive way of coping for him, either whether it was to run away from the problem, whether it was to release the intensity of the emotions that he was experiencing.
I had tried to overdose on prescription Xanax, and I went to turn myself in thinking that they were going to arrest me, throw me in jail. And my plan was to die in the jail that night.
The fact that these attempts often came immediately after a negative event, sometimes where he was responsible, often shows that he was trying to shift the attention from the fact that he was to blame for some event.
Throughout this time, Cullen was still working as a nurse on the coronary care unit in Warren Hospital, New Jersey, where between his psychiatric treatment, he had been killing patients.
He seemed to have a fascination around life and death, whether it was the power and control, whether it was the idea that he could kill in such a silent way, and whether this was his way of gaining pleasure and feeling the risk-taking and the thrill.
By now, Cullen was falling into a pattern. Each victim was elderly and killed in the same way, with a large dose of a heart stimulant known as digoxin.
You referred to
Digoxin.
Digoxin. And could you just generally describe what digoxin is and what it does to the body?
Dig is given to patients with a rapid heart rate. It slows the conduction down, the transmission from the atrium to the ventricle, and it's used to control a rapid, irregular heart rate known as atrial fibrillation.
He'd found a drug of choice that was his weapon.
By September 1993, at least 3 patients at Warren Hospital had died at Cullen's hands. 90-year-old Lucy Mugavaro, 85-year-old Mary Natoli, and 91-year-old cancer patient Helen Dean.
I went into the patient's room. I injected the patient. The patient did complain about it to the nurse, because it wasn't my patient.
Just like in the previous hospital, suspicion soon began to surround Cullen at Warren Hospital.
How did you inject her?
Into her leg muscle.
So it would have been an IM?
Yes. She died. There was an investigation because of the complaint that she had made. I was initially put on administrative leave with pay.
That sense of invincibility that was given to him by the hospital administrators, that he could continue to go unchecked, literally unchecked.
Despite a police and hospital investigation, Cullen managed to avoid detection once again.
I was investigated. They did a toxicology screen. And they also wanted me to take a polygraph test. I took the polygraph test and I passed it. I don't know why, but I did. The toxicology screen came up negative.
Cullen was using a particular drug that he knew wasn't easy to detect and wouldn't be picked up by some of the tests that would be run during an autopsy.
It was another 2 years before Cullen is known to have killed again. He was working at Hunterdon Medical Center in Flemington, New Jersey.
I would go long periods of time with nothing, but then I would find myself getting back, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like I couldn't watch people hurt, die, be treated like non-humans. At times, the only thing I could feel like I could do was to try and end their suffering.
This time, Cullen's kill rate increased. In the space of 7 months in 1996, he is known to have killed at least 5 people, amongst them 71-year-old Leroy Sin and 65-year-old Frank Mazzacco. But there could have been many more victims.
I can't even remember a lot of these people. It's like a fog. Maybe that's how I've gotten to this point, you know, but I know I did it, and I just don't remember details. I don't remember faces, and I don't remember. And I'm thinking, how could I do that and not remember that?
Over the next 8 years, Cullen worked in a further 6 hospitals. And the killing continued, seemingly indiscriminately.
We were unable to establish any type of pattern of his victimology. It appeared as though it would just depend on the type of day Cullen was feeling when he came to work.
I do not want the people to see me as this, what I am.
What are you, Charles?
A person who was trusted and responsible for a lot of people dying.
With each new nursing job, Cullen's actions would eventually be noticed, but Cullen remained at large.
Where's the checks and balances there? You know, how come they, you know, he went from hospital to hospital to hospital and still nothing?
People did suspect him. He was very much in the eyes of co-workers and administrators.
They strongly suspected that there were deaths associated with me.
By early 2003, Cullen is known to have killed at least 16 people, but his killing streak was about to escalate at an alarming rate.
I couldn't stop, I couldn't.
In 2003, Charles Cullen was working as a nurse at Somerset Medical Centre in Somerset, New Jersey, his 10th hospital since qualifying as a nurse. Since 1988, he had killed at least 16 people.
Cullen is a first for me in many ways, not only because of the sheer volume of victims at his hand, but the type of person he is.
In February of 2003, he moved on to his 17th known victim, Eleanor Stoker. Her son Bill was first to learn of her death.
It was in the morning. The doctors said something happened between the night and the morning. They had no explanation at the time of it, just possibly that her heart is going.
Eleanor was recovering well from a suspected heart attack when Cullen injected her with his poison of choice, digoxin.
People will kill and do other things that's available and within their control. So if somebody is used to guns, they'll often use a gun as their murder weapon. He was familiarized with chemicals.
They had no explanation. You know, there was no brain function, there was no nothing. There was nothing left of her. She was just gasping for air. She was on the respirator. My mom didn't want the respirator. So as a family, we made that decision to, you know, terminate that. Did I think of anything criminally at that point? No.
Eleanor's murder marked the start of an alarming escalation for Cullen.
Charles, I'd like to ask you, during your time at Somerset Medical Center, how many patients are you responsible for their deaths?
Maybe a dozen, I'm not sure. I don't recall specifics. There probably wasn't less, but it could have been more.
Over the next 8 months, Cullen is known to have killed or attempted to kill 14 more patients, including 2 on the same day, as well as a 21-year-old man, Michael Strenko.
He started to offend against younger victims who still had their life ahead of them. The risk-taking and the thrill of being in this position of power that consumed him, and that then led to an escalation of the offences.
It's like he had no particular, point of who to go after. He just went after whatever he could do. I think this would be a great candidate to, kill this one. Stalking them first and then making the kill. It's just sad.
Although he continued to use the same method to kill, Cullen began to change his tactics, varying his choice of medications to end his victims' lives.
A 9/9 pride, methotrexate were the other drugs I believe that I used.
Okay.
Serial killers always have these rituals that, they're working to a ritual. The rituals can develop, the rituals can change, but there's usually this core part of their ritual. And for Charles Cullen, that core part of the ritual was drugs and chemicals. That was never going to change.
On the 21st of October 2003, he killed his last known victim, 73-year-old Edward P. Zizik. Unknown to Cullen, the number of mounting deaths, all in similar circumstances, had triggered an internal investigation, and the police had been notified.
The hospital's internal investigation had been going on for approximately 5 to 6 months prior to our notification and involvement.
The investigation centred on the circumstances surrounding the death of several patients in the intensive care unit of Somerset Medical Centre, amongst them Catholic priest Reverend Florian Gall.
Did you realize he was a Catholic priest?
Yes, I did.
Did you feel as though you accomplished what you had set out to do?
I don't know if it was a sense of accomplishment.
Detectives, including Tim Braun, were also looking into another target of Cullen's, 40-year-old cancer patient Jin Kyuan Han.
Do you recall that incident and the circumstances surrounding that incident and that woman?
I thought it was terminal, that she was dying, and I guess I wanted to speed up the process of her death.
He was not necessarily always killing his own patients. These were patients that were just at the hospital that he was employed at. And so not knowing them and not watching the death really depersonalized it. It was the process he was so interested in, knowing he was going to kill them.
As it became clear Cullen was the prime suspect, Tim began to uncover the truth about his terrifying career.
There was a pattern of misused medications, unprofessional interactions with patients was noted in various prior places of employment records, things of that nature. But it was clear to us what we were seeing was a trail of death.
Despite having a suspect, it was another 2 months before they could prove Cullen's malicious intent.
I didn't know how to say it, what was happening, what I was feeling, what I was doing, and not lose everything. I thought I could change, but I don't think I was capable of doing that.
In the course of their investigation, detectives began to uncover how Cullen was able to commit his crimes using existing hospital equipment.
What this document is a Pyxis transaction in reference to the Pyxis system.
The Pyxis unit is a computerized automated medication dispensing device that is often in hospitals on medical floors and it dispenses various medications. And to access this machine, it is computerized. You have a person accessing or attempting to retrieve medication has to input certain information, their personal ID, their employee ID, and the patient's name.
I went under the DIG with the purpose of getting the DIG out, but I canceled it, which means there was no official me removing a medication. If I didn't remove it under that person's name, then I thought that it would not be a question of why removing a medication on a patient who wasn't on it.
So, in essence, it's safe to say that that transaction was done to disguise your removal of the Johnson.
To gain access to something like that, what happened to the system? I'm more, as much as I'm angry at Charles Cullen for killing, you have to look at the hospitals, the administration. What the hell happened there?
Although records indicated Cullen had been accessing the same medication that was found in the bodies of the people who had died, it wasn't enough to tie him to the deaths.
The case against Charles was circumstantial. We did not have a typical smoking gun, as you might in other types of homicide cases. We were looking at 16 years, syringes, medication vials, things of that nature did not exist in this case.
Did you want to get caught?
I think I did.
Clearly he didn't want to get caught because he didn't get caught. If he had wanted to get caught, he could have made it a lot more obvious what he was doing. I think it's far more likely that he just felt bulletproof.
If investigators were to bring Cullen's killing spree to an end, they would need to find a way to get an admission. The team saw an opportunity in a nurse colleague and friend of Cullen's, Amy.
She was a staunch supporter and defender of Cullen. Word had spread pretty quickly what we were doing and why we were doing it and who we were looking at. So she had built up quite a bit of anger towards us.
When investigators presented Amy with their evidence, she could no longer deny the truth.
She came to realize that her dear friend was not who she thought her friend was. She stated, "I know he's killing people."
Amy finally agreed to help investigators.
What Amy agreed to do for us was to tape record phone calls between she and Cullen. And ultimately, we had Amy lure Cullen from his home in Pennsylvania to New Jersey.
With serial killer Cullen in their sights, the trap was set. Police were ready to bring him in for questioning.
The ultimate piece of evidence that we were trying to obtain was a confession.
By 2003, the police believed they were on the verge of catching serial killer Charles Cullen. In an attempt to get a confession from him, police had planted a wire on his friend and colleague, Amy.
We had Amy invite Cullen to New Jersey for dinner at a local restaurant. And while at the restaurant, we had asked her to make efforts to try to get him to confess on tape to her. She did not require much direction. She was actually pretty good on her feet. He did start to confess to her, and as we were watching, we let it go for a short while before we stepped in and took over.
Officers had enough to arrest Cullen for the murder of Florian Gao and attempted murder of Jin Kiyuan Han. On the 14th of December 2003, Tim finally came face to face with the man who had eluded capture for so long.
My name's Detective Sergeant Tim Braun. With me is Detective Dan Baldwin. We're both from the Somerset County Major Crimes Unit. Today is Sunday, December 14th, 2003. The time is approximately 6:14 p.m.
Cullen was very flat. His demeanor was flat, very unemotional.
I went into the patient's room sometime later that night or morning and gave the medication to Reverend Gall.
And what was your intent?
My intent was to give it to the Reverend Gall.
For what reason?
So he would pass away.
Once Cullen started to open up about his own actions, the deeds that he had committed against these individuals, did his body language start to ease. His whole body just seemed to almost relax.
As the 6-hour interview went on, Cullen began to divulge more and more grim details of his horrific murders.
How many of the patients died or expired on your shift? The patients that you had helped get to that condition?
I would say the majority of them.
The majority of them?
90%.
90%?
It soon became clear to Detective Braun that he was staring into the eyes of a serial killer.
Charles Cullen was a classic psychopath, and he had no care for his fellow man.
And can you tell us in total, throughout your entire, I think it's approximately 15-year career, is that correct? As a registered nurse? Okay, 15, 16 years. How many patients have you helped to their death as a result of your actions?
Possibly 30 to 40 patients.
No remorse, none for his patients. A little bit of pity for himself, but not for anyone else.
Murdering scumbag. That's the way I would describe him. Lowlife. Pretty much that sums it up.
Cullen gave glimpses into the inner workings of his twisted mind.
I can't recall specifics. I just know that patient being a code was not something that I wanted when I saw someone that was terminally ill. Because the code situation, you're getting a lot of medications, you're doing chest compressions, you're doing invasive things.
Cullen described that he justified his actions because he didn't want the victims to be coded, which was a term for them going into a cardiac arrest. He wanted them to avoid a situation which potentially mirrors back to what he experienced with his mother.
If this was a mercy killing, Charles Cullen would have to be a merciful person. He wasn't a merciful person. He was a cruel, sadistic murderer.
How did that make you feel afterwards, after you had accomplished what you had set out to do?
There was a combination of feelings. There was fear of being caught with a dirty, dark secret. It bothered me, even though I felt like I was helping people. I also knew it was wrong. I didn't know it was wrong. Mm-hmm. I didn't want people to suffer.
It's horrible. You know, when you say something that you're murdering at a mercy, come on, it's a joke. I don't think it was mercy. My mom didn't want to die. She didn't ask him to say, hey, can you take me? Is there a way that you could, just knock me out and kill me? I don't think that was the case at all.
That will conclude the statement of Charles Cullen, and the time is 1:31 a.m. Thank you very much.
Following the interview, Cullen was charged with the murder of Reverend Gao and the attempted murder of Jin Kyoan Han. However, police knew that he had killed many more. Cullen used this fact as a bargaining chip.
He avoided death penalty because he voluntarily said that he committed these murders.
He's still trying to manipulate the situation to his own advantage. It's interesting that he asked not to have the death penalty, given that he had tried to commit suicide on so many occasions and wanted to end his life. But it was almost a final attempt of him trying to remain in control. It was him that was going to take his life, no one else.
He did confess to my mom's murder, plus all the other murders that he did. It's sad. I mean, just more and more people, under his care that he killed. Just heartbreaking.
Over the next 18 months, Cullen pleaded guilty to the murder or attempted murder of 35 people. On the 2nd of March 2006, Cullen appeared in court to be sentenced for his crimes. His victims' families now knew their relatives had been murdered.
And I still can't really comprehend it. A registered nurse who was supposed to be a caretaker took the life of my brother for his own personal, selfish, and twisted gain. Charles Cullen, you are a coward.
It gave the family members of his many victims the opportunity to confront Cullen.
A lot of people were in the same boat as we were, looking for the questions, looking for the why.
A serial murderer, serial killer. You ruin the lives of your family, your children, and many people in this courtroom. You've bloodied and stained the medical profession. Absolutely abhorrent what you did, sir.
He took a life from us, destroyed the family because of what he did, of his actions.
Charles Cullen was sentenced to 18 consecutive life sentences, totaling more than 382 years in prison. Though he'll never be free to kill again, his actions still torture those who were left behind.
I was like 30 or, when she died, but, still, I was the baby of the family. I loved her so much. I miss her so much. And seeing her in my dreams, mostly every night, I see her gasping for air. How could a person do that to a person, especially a nurse? How could a nurse do that? To just kill at free will.
Although the world now knows Charles Cullen as one of the most prolific serial murderers in American history, we may never understand what brought out the killer within a nurse whose job it was to save lives.
I wish I would have taken my own life a long time ago, so I wouldn't have done what I did. Maybe if I was 9 years old and I would have died that day.
Everybody says how you grew up and you're brought up this way, brought up that way. It's still, at the end, it's your decision, what you do. You live and die by your decision. To say that, it's the way you were brought up, no, that doesn't fly with me, because he had a choice of putting that medicine into those IVs.
It would be just some sad tale of someone who killed themselves years ago instead of someone who did this, what they did.
What he is and what he was, and what he still is, actually, is a monster.